You are watching Speed and Success. I've got my friends Josh Beasley and Ian Kowalczyk with me. How you doing, guys?
Fantastic, Chris. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. So, Josh, let's start with you. Tell us a little about yourself.
I'm out here in Southern California, down in LA, so the land of sunshine and movies, and with Club R, LA. So if after the talk, you guys can go ahead and check that out. There'll be a little bit of a link in there that you guys can follow some information there.
Absolutely. Ian, a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Ian Kowalczyk, and I currently live in the state of Hawaii, kind of a ways from you guys.
6
but I'm
hours
definitely
to be exact.
Yeah, 6 hours. It's quite a time change, but I love it down here, and no matter how far away, I feel like I'm still close to you guys. So
awesome. So tonight our topic is Ferrari versus Lamborghini, and we are going to piss a lot of people off tonight. Are you guys ready for that?
Oh, we're quite born ready. Born.
All right. So where do we start on this?
Well, I think it all starts with the story. And I think you guys know which story I'm talking about. The story about one Italian man who pissed off another Italian man, and the other Italian man said, "I'm going to make a better car than you."
And that other Italian was right.
Very right.
We have Enzo Ferrari to thank for being such a douchebag.
I would like to thank, though, it's one of those things where I'd like to say thank you to Ferrari because the best thing you gave us was not the F40, you gave us Lamborghini. So that's kind of where I fall.
And GT40 and a bunch of other cars, the Monteverdi and a bunch of other great cars.
Oh, absolutely.
He kind of spawned off quite a few things that he probably didn't wish happened.
I mean, his present theme song would be, "Enemies" by Drake right now because he definitely had quite a lot of enemies. But I mean, I do respect the guy for the fact that he had a clear vision and just didn't let anyone interrupt or intrude on that vision. So I think in that regard, he was definitely very successful. And as far as the things that he was able to kind of accomplish, I think it was good that Lamborghini came about because it forced Ferrari to get better. I don't think without, the Countaches and Miras running up his heels, I don't think Enzo would have came up with something as insane as the F40, which if you look at really like kind of how it fits into Ferrari's mold, it's very out there.
Okay, let me go down the list here. I like the Aventador better than I like the F12. I like the Murcielago better than I like the 599. I like the Gallardo better than I like the F430, and I like the Diablo better than I like the 550 Maranello. Now, when you get to Countach and Testarossa, that's a throwdown right there.
Yeah. But what side of the fence are you falling on that one?
I really don't know. It's okay.
It's cop out, but I'll take it.
There's more Testarossas than there are Countaches.
I believe there's a few thousand Testarossas, to be exact.
Yeah, so if you see a Countach, it's more special.
More like Countach.
It's more special to see one than it is to see a Testarossa. That is, unless you see a Ferrari 512M, which is extremely rare.
But that's true. It's not answering the question, but it's okay. Well, if you don't want to speak ill of the Testarossa because Lamborghini's Countach is superior, so it's all good. I understand.
Yep.
I think one of the quotes that I really like was from Jeremy Clarkson, where he talks about the original LP400, and he says that when Lamborghini debuted the LP400, this was as far as a jump forward in the automotive world as the horse was from the Harrier jump jet.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, gotta love Jeremy Clarkson's quotes.
Yeah, I think where the debate comes down to is that it's interesting because it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges. Ferrari's apples, they're, the red, they've got sort of the heritage, the racing pedigree. That's kind of what they were founded on. I mean, Enzo Ferrari detested the road cars, and like his road car customers, he loved the racing. That for him is exactly what he wanted. And so, the antithesis of that is Lamborghini, which is, we build the world's greatest and most exciting road car. We are not about racing or that pedigree or this, that, or the other. Like, this is what we do and focus on. So I think initially from the get-go, it was one of those, they had two very distinct missions.
Well, so here's where I stand with it. The first Ferraris I saw when I was a kid, were the 308, the F40, and the Testarossa. Now, what do those three cars have in common? They're all wild-looking cars. So that pretty much cemented in my mind that Ferraris were wild-looking cars. Even the name Ferrari just sounds so badass. And then after that, the successor to the Testarossa came out, the 550 Maranello. I looked at it and I said, "That's a Ferrari?" I mean, it's not a bad-looking car. It's just I thought they softened up a little bit. I think Ferraris got disappointing after the Testarossa and the F40.
I can agree with that. I mean, it wasn't up until the 599 GTO that people, or even the Enzo, they both kind of shared the same engine platform, but they were just both kind of really ridiculous. I didn't feel like we had anything until then. Now, the F50, that's a different story, but that was just such a rare car. And there's a lot of people that downplay the F50, but I mean, when you look at that thing, it's pretty wild. It's pretty out there.
See, okay, that is one of the exceptions for me. I love the F50. That's one of the exceptions to the rule that they started getting disappointing. I think that's one of the best looking Ferraris and sounding Ferraris.
Oh man, that V12.
Yes.
The Ferrari F50 is that car it's that little kid from the block that, the kid is a good kid. He's decent, but his father and the way he kind of handles that kid is just really, really rubbing people out the wrong way. So I think the Ferrari 50 would have been much more well received if it wasn't for the fact that Ferrari handled it very differently. Because those cars that are like, oh, we'll loan it to you. We absolutely forbid any journalist from taking this. If we find out your car was driven by a journalist and reviewed, we will blacklist you forever.
Oh wow!
So it's one of those things where Ferrari's sort of Sicilian heritage kind of came out, and the kid's he's a great kid. But, his dad, who happens to be the Don Mafia boss, is shaking folks down, so that's going to make it
Wait, so what is it that happened with the F50?
So the Ferrari F50, I mean, when it first came out, Ferrari announced that, you were going to be able to lease the car. You wouldn't really actually be able to buy it. Kind of like what they did with the FXX program, but it was structured a little bit differently.
It's your car, but it's not.
Yeah, that whole thing. So then eventually, there's, owners like, it's ours. Yeah, we're keeping them. But they had a huge campaign for, they did not want journalists to drive it or test it. I mean, even to this day, it's still one of those things that officially hasn't gone through the paces. And part of it is because it's a car that they, never planned to build. I mean, they had the 333 SP out, and
oh man, that's another wild one.
Yeah, but what the problem was that the rules changed and they needed to homologate the engine. So they're like, well, we're kind of coming up on our 50th birthday, right? Let's just build a car on this engine. And that's, the birth of the F50.
A lot of people downplay the F50 because it didn't quite have the performance of the F40. But when you look at the F50 as a machine and not, more of a performance manufacturer, it's pretty incredible. I mean, you have a carbon fiber monocoque, carbon fiber body. It has an F1 engine with a manual transmission in it. I mean, it's out of here.
And this is a little bit off topic, but when the 50 came out, it also was facing a field of different competitors. So it kind of got left in the shadows because when the F40 came out, it was just F40 Countach, and to a lesser extent, whatever the Highline Porsche.
The Porsche 959.
Yeah. So, but then the 959 kind of carried over into the early 90s when the F50 came out. But then you had, Jaguar going insane with the XJ220. Bugatti was resurrected in zombie mode with the EB110. And then McLaren came out with the almighty F1 that just pretty much redefined what a supercar was. So in comparison to, the supercar competitor class, the F50 just had a lot more competing interests. And, anything that's, sub 230 miles an hour, that day, it just
became obsolete.
Well, yeah, I mean, so, okay, the F50 is a manual transmission and it's a V12. Well, so is the McLaren F1, and it's breaking all these records. And guess what? The engine bay is made out of gold, and it's got all this futuristic stuff on there too. And the doors go up. So,
yes.
It's I think that's a large reason why the F50 kind of got slotted and downplayed. Despite I think it's a pretty cool machine. I mean, would I take one over a Lamborghini Diablo? That's a tough question because I'm a huge fan of the Diablos.
Me too.
I just think they look absolutely beautiful. Now, when it comes to who makes the best track car, obviously it's Ferrari, hands down. That's just been their bread and butter. That's the live and breathe. As far as road cars go, I think no one makes a more exciting road car than Lamborghini. That's the camp that I'm in. So, as a road car person, I am a huge Lamborghini guy.
Lamborghini in the 90s, pretty much, they only had one model, and that was the Diablo. They had many variations of it. Ferrari had several different models, but most of them were not the best. They weren't the most striking. Like
the 348.
That was okay. But there was the 355. That was a good-looking car, and it was one of the best-sounding cars ever made, in my opinion. But I wouldn't call it. It was good. It was a good-looking car, but I wouldn't call it stunning. To me, it looked like a watered-down Testarossa.
I would disagree with you there. To me, the 355 was one of those just classically cool kind of cars, and it was one of the last Ferraris that when they made it, it was like, yeah, that's like a cool little fast Italian sports coupe. Like I'd be with that. I think Frank Sinatra said it best. When you want to be someone, you buy a Ferrari. When you are someone, you buy a Lamborghini.
But I do think the 355 is better looking than the other car, like the 456 and the 550 Maranello. Not bad looking, but they're just kind of bland.
Let us all agree that any Ferrari is better than the Mondial.
I don't understand why people bash that car.
No, that was proof that not every car Ferrari made was beautiful. I'm sorry. The Mondial is just, yeah.
It was the AMC Pacer of the exotic world.
Oh,
it really was.
Oh, that is, no.
It really was.
I can't agree with you guys there. Not at all.
You're going to defend. I'd like to hear the case for the Mondial. Please enlighten us.
Yeah.
I liked that car as a kid. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite Ferraris, but I think it's a good looking car.
But as a kid, I also liked, the Flintstone-mobile and thought that was awesome. And now, as trying to get a taste, I see that I was a little mistaken in my childhood ways. It's okay. There's plenty of time to come to the light.
No, there was one particular model. I don't know which one it was. It had a weird-looking bumper on it. It looked like a rubber bumper around the front, and that didn't look good. But I have a friend who has one, and it's a nice, classy-looking car. It's black. Cabriolet, and yeah,
so it looks like a shadow, so you can't really see. Like, oh, that's kind of an odd little event there, and that's sort of an odd kind of.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Road and Track or somebody did a head-to-head with the Mondial and like a Honda or something during that time period, and I think it was definitely like an Asian car or something. The Asian car, it's just a little Econo box, had the same 0 to 60 time as the Mondial.
The evidence is piling.
Okay. Now, don't tell
Sorry, Chris.
Don't tell me you guys think the FF looks better than the Mondial.
I mean,
I'd have to say it does.
That's like, I don't know. That's like, all right. So does this like half-eaten carcass of a wolf look cuter than this like half-decayed carcass of a tiger? They're both pretty hideous in my opinion, but if I was to choose one evil over the other, I would have to go with the FF. Like, the FF, the Mondial just to me is on my list of that is one of the ugliest cars made.
Wow, I don't understand it. I see. Okay, the FF's interior is gorgeous. It's fantastic, but the
you can't say about the
exterior,
Mondial.
it looks like a penis with a big grin on it.
I mean, they just dropped some Viagra into the design, and then boom, there you go. That's exactly what it was.
It's just pumping out horsepower.
Exactly. It's got a V12 in the front that cranks out 660 horsepower. So
yeah, there's a lot of similarities with the FF and the F12 actually. So.
Well, everything they got wrong on the FF, they got right on the F12. That's why the F12 just looks super beautiful, and the FF is just like.
Yeah.
It's great. Like I would drive an FF. But then, I'd catch my reflection, like, in, another car or in, like, a building window, and it'd just be like, shouldn't have seen that. And it goes,
it's like that Top Gear where the...
looking at that.
Yeah. It's a fantastic car.
If you catch my drift.
Yeah, it's like the Panamera, it's a fantastic
I can't look.
but just, from a styling perspective, I'm like, you just missed the mark.
When you look at it from behind, it kind of looks like a dog taking a dump. It's just kind of hunched over.
Well, I kind of feel that way about the Veyron.
I agree.
But this isn't about Bugatti. Now the F12, I think that's one of the better looking cars of the Ferraris of today.
I think it's absolutely beautiful.
Well, have you seen the F12 TRS that just came out as well?
I've seen pictures of it. I'm not a big fan.
Oh.
I'm 50-50. I'll reserve judgment until I see it in person. Because bits of it look kind of cool, but I'm also like, if I see it in person, it looks like it could either like really work or just really kind of not work. Or it looks like, oh, well, why did they tack this on here? Or this just looks kind of out of place. So wait till I see it in person before I judge it.
Let's just say that I got some photos today from a Ferrari mechanic that haven't really been revealed yet, and it's well worth it.
Photos that came attached with $100 bills. And see, that's the easiest way to get That's how they had to get the Mondial pass. So they're just like, are we really gonna put this out there and stick our badge on it? Like, Dorian, we'll write you a check for it and just let this happen.
Well, now, okay, 456 or Mondial?
6, hands down.
Really?
456.
Yeah, Mondial, just throw in basically any Ferrari out there. The Mondial is at the bottom of the totem pole.
400i?
Yes. And buy a thread. Buy a thread, but yes.
Now, the F12, I do like that car. The one thing that I think is kind of weird about it is the grille. It looks like a pirate going, "Arr!"
It doesn't look right to me. I mean, every time I've seen it in person, the chrome kind of just seems out of place, or I think I saw one with a black grille, and it just doesn't seem to fit the bill.
It looks perfect. It looks beautiful because it just looks like the wind just carved that whole front era out, and then it's just, the car is smiling because it's happy. Like, yeah, I know I look good.
Now the brake flaps though, that open to cool the brakes, I think those are pretty sweet.
That's a cool feature, and I think that car looks best in black.
It does look great in black. I think it can wear any color really well. Silver, red, grays, blues. It's interesting too though because Lamborghini's had quite a lot of hits, but they've also had like a couple misses. The Jalpa or Yalpa, whatever the correct pronunciation for that particular one is. That was one of those cars where it was kind of like, we kind of get we see what you're going for, but we're not exactly 100% sold on it yet from a look perspective, because I think it looks a little too similar to the Pantera, which kind of looked a little too similar to the Countach.
Well, when you look at the people who designed it, they were actually some of the same guys.
Yeah.
It is kind of an awkward looking car, the Halpa, but I like it. It's for one thing, it's rare.
Just because it's rare because no one wanted it, not because it was like lower production numbers. But
that's what makes me want it now. Because here's an analogy for you. The woman that you fall in love with might not look like a porn star or a supermodel, but there's something about her that goes beyond her looks. So that's how I feel. That this analogy goes toward like the Ferrari Daytona and the Ferrari 458 Italia. In my opinion, the 458 Italia is a better looking car. That car's a supermodel. But if I go to a car show and I see a Ferrari Daytona and a Ferrari 458 Italia, I'm walking up to the Daytona first.
Now, I see that analogy, and in that exact same instance, my line of thinking is, you can't have sex with personality. So I'm going to go to the 458 Italia.
Well, when I think about it, I think of the Daytona, like, that 60-year-old cougar who, still has the hots for the young guy, and she's got all that experience, and she's got that sassy attitude. That's kind of how I perceive it.
No, I like the, 19-year-old supermodel that just kind of wants to party and have fun and just ready to go. So that's kind of how I visualize it, where it's just like, all right, I respect the maturity and some of the wisdom, but at the same time, if you want to turn the music up loud, do a couple of shots, and then just go off on an evening that you have no idea how it's going to end. I think that, and it's easily approachable. I feel that the Italia offers that.
I would agree with that. I think on the other hand, though, despite the Daytona not being as good at looking, it's more exciting for me to see one because you don't see them as often. The Italia is one of those Ferraris that every Ferrari owner has. It's a little too common. It's kind of like a great song that's been played on the radio too much.
You're the guy that's at the Victoria's Secret shoot, just like, oh my gosh, all these supermodels out here. This is just so blasé. Like, oh wait, there we go. There's a PR agent who's, she's about 50, but chain smoking for 30 years, but there's something to her there.
I don't know if I'd go there.
Now, here's a question that I would pose because they're kind of similarly shaped. The Ferrari FF looks-wise versus the Lamborghini Espada.
I would rather have an Espada than the Ferrari FF.
Same here,
without a doubt.
The Espada, it's hideous, but I love it. It is the most. You look at it and you think, really? Somebody designed that and they thought that was a great idea? It was. I mean, for one thing, they sold quite a few of them for its time, and right. I love it. I just love how quirky and outrageous it is.
Definitely came out during the station wagon era where everyone was just making wagons.
Yes.
Well, if you look at the other cars that Gandini designed that were similar to the Espada, it kind of gives you more a look into what he was thinking when he designed it. There was a Jaguar around that time period. It was a one-off that has a similar body style.
The Piranha?
Piranha, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm. And, I mean, when you look at the Piranha, you can kind of see what Gandini was getting at when he drew the lines for the Espada. Very, very similar cars, but you kind of learn to appreciate it a little bit more.
Oh, well, in the interest of time here, I'll probably cut it a little bit short by saying that I think I would probably take the FF over the Espada because I wasn't necessarily a fan of that sort of station wagony. It had kind of that Chevy Chase kind of vibe to it. So, and I was looking
at kids, the Eiffel Tower.
Exactly. Compared to the other things that Lamborghini was making, I was kind of like, it's a little oddball.
Well, you know what, though? Clark Griswold would have been able to drive his family much quicker to their destination in the Espada.
Absolutely. That we can all agree on.
It had 4 seats.
That's true.
But 4 Italian seats, so really just, 2 seats and then 2 seats in the back for, midgets.
Actually, I've ridden in an Espada. The back seats are pretty big.
Really?
Fit for adults in there.
So you could conceive a child in the back seat is what you're telling me in the Espada. Interesting.
Yes, you could.
Right. That's what you need to know as far as,
As long as you're not with a fat chick, you could probably do it.
All right. There we go.
Now, this conversation would not be complete without doing Countach versus Testarossa.
Yes.
And, to me, it's just Countach hands down about every way, shape, or form. I mean, you want to talk about mechanical reliability and just, as far as pain in the ass to deal with, maintenance-wise, they're both pretty much the same. But the Countach wins the Testarossa battle every single time in my book on all fronts.
Well, the way I see it, Lamborghini was kicking Ferrari's ass in the design department with the Countach.
Oh yeah.
But I think the Testarossa was the perfect answer to the Countach. I mean, I think that's like the one Ferrari that was just sexy as hell.
I would say the F40 was the answer to the Countach because the Countach literally made the modern supercar pinup, poster car porn, the car porn poster child. That was the Countach, it brought everything out. When everyone saw the Cannonball Run opening, they were just like, whoa, what is this thing? Like, we don't know what it is, but yes, we like that a lot. The Testarossa came out as a competitor and had a fairly, I would say, successful foothold. But as far as cultural consciousness, you talked about what's an exciting, Italian car? What's a supercar? Everyone is going to tell you time and time again, Countach. I mean, even the legend behind the name of it, where it was just this design that didn't have a name for it, and someone was just like, their mind exploded, and Countach was the sound that came out. That's really what resonates. So to me, the F40 is more of Ferrari's answer to that, because when the F40 came out, basically all the purists that, had kind of wandered away from the holy church that is, Enzo Ferrari's temple, were all brought back. And, even today, the purists are, the almighty F40. One cannot say any bad words or, any fallacy or heresy again. So, as far as capturing that kind of attention, I think the F40 was the answer to the Countach, and it answered it pretty well.
Ian, what's your take on that?
So they're great. They're great cars, both of them, the Ferrari Testarossa and the Countach. But hands down, I'm going to have to say the Countach. I'm biased in this case. It's my favorite car. But as Josh brought up Cannonball Run, when I was a little kid, I saw a Ferrari Testarossa in the movies, and I was like, that's a pretty cool car. But then when I saw Cannonball Run for the first time, my jaw dropped. Every time I saw that car in that movie, I would just freak out. And the first time I watched it with my parents one night, and I waited till everybody fell asleep just so I could sneak back out into the living room and put on Cannonball Run again and watch the first 3 minutes of that movie on repeat at least like 10 times. And then I snuck off back to bed, and I was just like, whoa, like I want one of these in my life one day. So, no other car has truly done that for me. And when you look at the Countach even today, a lot of owners will tell you they attract more attention than an Aventador or even modern day Ferraris. So,
that's just that. That's I'll let you finish.
Oh, sorry. I was also reading today that the downdraft V12 in the Countach, the later Countach, was rated at about 470 horsepower, which back during that time period it's an insane amount of horsepower. But Lamborghini was very discreet and liked to keep it all secret because they knew Ferrari were going to build a more powerful car if they let people know, hey, this thing has 470 horsepower.
Really?
Plus, EA was flexing its muscles, so,
Yeah.
First, you couldn't get a Countach here, but then if you went to a certain dock and paid off a pretty big, hairy guy in Miami or in LA, there'd be a shipping container that just happened to show up that would just be full of, 15, 20 Countaches. So, it was
like the beginning of Rain Man.
Exactly. It was the car that you just had to have kind of thing.
What is everybody's favorite Countach version?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think I'll probably.
Oh, sorry.
I'll let you go for it because without a doubt.
Without a doubt, and I know because I have pictures of it all over my desk. It'd have to be a 1986 Countach downdraft, the 5000 Quattro Valvole. It's got 4 valves per cylinder. It's got those Weber carburetors. Without a doubt, it's the most powerful Countach. It's the best looking Countach. No rubber bumpers or anything like that. It's a work of art.
Yeah, I probably would go with the 5000 QV just because it has the right amount of flares with the big delta wing, and just everything on it looks absolutely stunning. I am a huge fan of the 25th, which a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, that's the one. I'm like, hey, look, Horatio Pagani designed that, and Pagani is, the new car god. So no question.
That was going to be my next question. What you guys think about the 25th anniversary?
I love it. It's just got those sort of kind of, long, sort of flowing brakes in it. It's a good looking car.
I think it's badass. Some people think it's an abomination.
These are the people that said that as soon as they put the wing or a flare arch on the Countach, oh my God, you ruined it.
No.
Oh, you made it better.
I was kind of sad. The first Countach I saw in person was at Katz Exotics in Washington, and it was a white 25th anniversary. And, it really, I love Countaches. I love them more than any other car, but it really didn't do anything for me. I was kind of disappointed, to be honest.
I've seen them before. I've seen a white one. There was a white one at the Concours d'Elegance here in Michigan, and oh my God, it just I'm speechless. I mean, they Miami Viced to the hell out of that car. with all the scoops and all the vents and stuff. But who cares?
Gotta go with interior, man. That's just how it is.
The Countach was not built for numbers on paper. It was not built for aerodynamics. But okay, here's the next question: Countach, with or without the wing?
Is that even a question? It's obviously with the wing.
It's gotta have the wing and the fender flares. Gotta have them.
Why not both? I think it's equally as beautiful with the wing and without the wing. I think each one has their kind of, the slanted back on one without the wing. It's kind of cool. But then when you really look at the design, you think, oh man, that thing is going to take off like an airplane. It's got to have the wing on it. So,
I mean, I'm not one of those people who really cares about functionality. In my opinion, cars today are getting too functional.
I agree.
It's kind of like a musician who has chops up the wazoo, but plays with no emotion. And that's what I think cars are today. They're just they're all engineering and no style.
I think you're looking at the wrong cars. I think we got a lot of great offerings in the modern era, especially now more than ever. The cars that people are coming out with today, I think, are rivaling, I think, a lot of the old cars. I mean, I said it before. Nostalgia makes everything HD. So,
yes.
A lot of old cars are pretty terrible when you drive them, and they're much more fun for everyone else who's like watching you drive it than actually being the driver. So I think, a lot of the new cars, even with the new, technology and driver aids and this, that, the other, I think right now is the second golden age of cars. There are some really fantastic, amazing machines out there that, if you look kind of back in the day, you really only got that sort of feeling from a handful of cars. It's not like, oh my gosh, like everyone was making all these amazing, great drivers cars. Like, no, just, they could kind of get away with a lot more back then. But as far as, the percentage of cars as a whole that were, great and fun, like amazing drivers cars, it wasn't that high.
All right, guys. Well, that's all the time we have. Josh, Ian, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.